Ready to begin?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, so Lech. This is a packed parsha. You can tell by the fact that I have 5 pages. We're not going to get through everything, I'm sure. But I want to focus at the beginning. Who was Avraham, and what did he contribute to world history and humanity?
He's a patriarch.
He was a patriarch.
And he emphasized chesed.
He did. Why is he the? What did he? Let's say it like this. What did he do that was so different than what Noah did? Because Abraham became the father of the Jewish people.
Yeah.
Noah didn't.
Right.
So that's one thing I want to discuss if we get to it. The other thing I want to discuss is how did Abraham Avinu come to a recognition that there is one God? Well, first of all, start at the beginning. Everyone knew there was one God. Adam Rishon, right? He was created by God. Adam knew there was one God. He was created by him. Adam and Eve knew. Noah knew there was one God. So what happened in the world that all of a sudden people were worshiping idols? What got lost? So the Rambam talks about this, and he says that little by little, people know that especially if you read Svarim, there's a spiritual world and there are angels. So people started thinking that, the angels in reality are just servants of Hashem. They do whatever Hashem says. They don't have their own free will, usually, to do anything. They don't have any inherent power. So people started to make a mistake and said, the angels, they have their own inherent power, and we can pray to the angels. And then it became, if I'm praying to the angels, there's certain angels that are in charge of different things. There's an angel in charge of the moon, in charge of the sun. So people said, maybe the moon and the sun have inherent power. And they started praying to the moon and the sun and idols and everything before. And then people forgot that there is one God. So I want to talk about how, I would like to read here the Rambam, how Avraham came to the recognition that there's one God. Because don't forget, he grew up in a society that was all idolaters. His family was idolaters. No one God. How does someone come to the... Sorry. I left it on once because I think, you came once and the door was locked and I didn't hear you. So now I leave my phone on in case that happens again.
I know there's a button there.
Right. Okay. So the Rambam writes, this is in the Laws of Idolatry 1.3. Kevin Shningwell Esan Zehischel Shaitit Bedaita V'hu Katan V'hischel Lachsha B'yom V'layla V'haya Tamid Heich Efsher Shia Gagal Az Noeg Tamid V'lo Yelo Manig U'Misavas. So when he was already a young man, Abraham started thinking, how could it be that there's day and night and there's this constant cycle and there's nobody in charge of it? Ki Efsher Yishav V'Satzmo. It's impossible that it happens by itself. He said he didn't have a teacher that taught him this. He lived in the city named Ur-Kasdim. It's I think I learned about it in high school. It's like one of the oldest civilizations. It's in Iraq, around Iraq now. They were all idolaters. His parents were idolaters. Nobody taught him this. It was on his own. He thought about it, gave honest reflection until he realized that there has to be one God controlling all of this. He realized there's one God, and he's the one who makes it go from day to night and runs everything. He created everything. And there's no other God besides him. He realized that the whole world is making a mistake. Right? Why are we called Hebrews? Ivri. Avraham HaIvri he was called. Abraham the Hebrew. We're called Ivrim, Hebrews. Because the word Ivri is like a side of a river. That's what the word Ivri means. That Avraham stood on one side of the river and everyone else was on the other side. Meaning he was the only one in the entire world who came, maybe there was one or two others, but came to this recognition that there is one God. Versus the entire world did not believe that, and he almost lost his life, as we know, for that. That's why it's called Ivri, and that's what a Jew is. A Jew stands aside, apart from the rest of the world, that this is what we believe, these are our values, and we don't care the fact that you believe something else. There's an interesting, just because most people believe something doesn't make it correct. Uben Arbaim Shana Hikir Abraham Esbore, and when Abraham was 40, he recognized that there was a creator. Now it's interesting here. There's a medrash that we most of us have been taught. I remember learning it right here in Hebrew school in one of these classrooms when I was in 3rd grade. I think it was with Ari, and that when Abraham was 3, he his father had an idol shop, and he put the hammer. Right. Everyone knows this medrash, like the most famous medrash ever, and he destroyed all the idols, and then he put the hammer in the big idol, and the father came back and said, "What happened?" And he said, "Oh, this big idol said something to that idol, and they got in a fight. And this idol, he's like, well, I just can't do anything." So he says, "Exactly. Why do you pray to him?" So the Rambam seems to be going with another opinion that Abraham was 40 when he recognized Hashem, whereas that Medrash seems to hold he was 3. It could be talking about different elements and different levels of belief. Very often, when you have conflicting midrashim, they're not really arguing. They're talking about 2 different aspects. So I didn't research this point. I'm just bringing it up. So it says, "Kevin shehikir v'yada hitzchol lahashiv tshuvos al bnei or kastim l'arach dinim alhem v'loimer she'ein zederech haemes." So Avram started telling people, you're worshiping idols. That's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. Shatam halchem v'shiver hatzlamim. He started destroying idols. V'hitzchol lahodiya la'am she'ein rei la'avod ela Lcha Elokim. You shouldn't worship idols. You should only worship the one God of the world. V'lo roi lehishtachavos ulahakir v'lenasech. And it's only befitting to Him that you bow down and you bring sacrifices. And he told them that they should all destroy their idols, and he preached the message of the one God. So the Rambam's telling us that Abraham, just from looking around nature, right, he realized that there's day and night. He looks, there's constellations, there's a natural order to everything. That by just looking at that, he didn't have a teacher, but he came on his own recognition to realize that there's a God. It was an intellectual point that brought him to this fact, and that's what I find very interesting. I've been reading a lot of books pro-evolution, anti-evolution, and one of the things that it's funny, which people point out, is that writers like Richard Dawkins, who are defending evolution, and he's an atheist, he says that we have to explain the apparent design of the world. What do you mean apparent design? If you look around, there's a design, right? They're trying to answer up why the world looks like it's designed, right? The most logical thing to say is that if the world looks like that it's designed, then there is a designer. And that only makes sense if there's one God. Like, for instance, I think someone said it might have been Einstein, that the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it's comprehensible. Meaning there are laws. There's electromagnetism, there is gravity, and all these laws of physics which are true, that they always apply. You can write a mathematical equation and figure out how fast something is going to accelerate, or these different fields and different things. Now, why is that? Why should things exist in the physical universe be guided by laws? Why can't they just be random? Why do they always have to follow rules? It only makes sense if there are rules, because there's a rule giver. I saw a very interesting quote. This was from Melvin Calvin, who is a Nobel Prize winner. Right? You ever notice that historically, most of the discoveries of the meaning of the universe happened in the Western world? They didn't happen in the East, like in China and India. They had they invented cool stuff like gunpowder, but the actual theories of boiling down how the universe works, that happened in the West. So why was that? So I just want to read this quote. So he said that the idea that was first enunciated by the ancient Hebrews, namely that the universe is governed by a single God and is not the product of the whims of many gods, each governing his own province according to his own laws. This monotheistic view seems to be the historical foundation for modern science. Meaning, since we look around the world, and if you're working with the view that there's one God, then it makes sense that everything should exist in harmony, that there should be a design, a grand design. If you believe in many gods, if you believe in idolatry, then it's just everything's willy-nilly. This God does his thing, that God does that thing, and nothing is related. Nothing works together. But when you coming from the point where there's one God and He designed everything to work in perfect harmony, it makes sense you would look for that harmony in the laws that are describing nature. And I think that's part of what Avram Avinu realized on his own. You look around the world and you see this magnificent creation that we have. There has to be that it was designed by a God. Now, let's say one more point on that. And what's also interesting, I've mentioned this many times, but I think that there's a natural inclination for humans to believe in God, to believe in a creator. There was a study done by Oxford in 2011 that says children naturally believe in a God, and heaven, I think, even. And that, however, there's a Yetzer Hara, that just like there's a desire, the Yetzer Hara tries to get us to do sins by, want to eat this non-kosher food or have illicit relations or act haughty. Just like it's not an intellectual urge, it's a spiritual, physical urge. There's the same type of urge to not believe in God, because if I don't believe in God, then I don't have to do anything. It's called being Parik Ol. So if a person is in his natural state, not biased by those urges, he would naturally believe in God. Now, Okay, I'm going a different order. Now, one thing that was interesting that we read in the Rambam, not only did he believe in God, but he started telling everybody about it. Right? He didn't just keep it to himself. And that is going to be the primary difference between Abraham and Noach, right? Last week we read, Noach was a tzaddik in his generation, right? He was for sure a righteous person. Only he was saved, and his children were saved, and his family. But nevertheless, his descendants did not merit to become the chosen people, the Jewish people, to receive the Torah. Only Avram's descendants. He's the one that Hashem made a covenant with, that your children will get this land, you're going to be the chosen people, you get the Torah. Why was it Abraham and not Noach? So I'm going to read this medrash. This Rabbi Feldman said many times when I was in Israel. Reb Nehemiah Amar, Mashal la'ovo shamelech shehu mishtakeh betit ava. Hitzitz hamelech v'ra so Amar lei ad sha'ata mishtakeh betit halachimi. This is the parable is a king was walking along and he sees his good friend stuck in the mud. So he pulled his friend out. He said, "Why are you stuck in the mud? Let me help you out and walk with me." And that's what it means that Noach walked with God. That's referring to Noach. What is Avraham similar to? La'ovo shamelech. Someone that the king loved, and he saw the king. He's walking in this dark alley. So what did this friend do? He saw the king walking in a dark alley. He went into a window and he lit a light, so the light would come in from the house, so that the king could see where he's going. Amarlo, so the king says to him, "Why are you making a light for me in the house? Why don't you take the lantern and walk in front of me and light for me along the way?" So said Hashem to Abraham, lo me'as paratamya umachvrusel bo veher lifnei be'eretz Yisrael. So he says that you're lighting the light for me in the window. Come light it for me and walk in front of me. This is similar to Hashem said to Abraham, "You're lighting the light for me in Babylon, in Ur Kasdim. Go to Israel and light the light for me there." The difference between Noach and Abraham was that Noach believed in Hashem. He was a righteous person. He did what he's supposed to do, but he didn't make it his life's work to spread that message to other people. Abraham made it his life's work to spread that message. Right? Already the Rambam is saying when he was in Ur Kasdim, he started talking to people about Hashem. There's one God. He started breaking the idols. What are you doing? There's one God. You have to worship the one God. When you're so passionate about something and you believe it to such a depth, then you make it a point to tell everybody about it, right? When you're happy and you're in love, you have to tell everybody. You want to share it. Avraham Avinu had to share it with everybody. Noach believed it, but it wasn't to the same point, right? We read Rashi in last week's Parsha, said Noach was actually Miktani Amana. He was from those people who had little faith in Hashem, right? He believed in Hashem, but it wasn't a great faith. It wasn't something that he totally lived with. Abraham, which we'll hopefully discuss in the upcoming weeks, he totally lived with the faith in Hashem, right? It wasn't just an intellectual faith, but he lived it, right? He was ready to sacrifice his son, Yitzchak, because Hashem told him to, right? Only somebody who believes in Hashem and makes it integral to his life, that what Avraham Avinu wants, all he wanted his whole entire life was a son. Hashem comes and tells him, you have to go sacrifice the son. Okay, he goes and does it. Not only that, it says, Vayashkim Avram Baboker, that Abraham woke up early, right? He was like, just like you're excited to get up and go to something you want to go to, Abraham Avinu got excited to serve Hashem, to sacrifice his son, because his whole essence was nullified to the will of God. That is a total separate level that Abraham had that Noach didn't. And because of that, Abraham became the father of the chosen people, the Jewish people, and that only his descendants would receive the Torah. So it's interesting also that, what did people do when they worship idols, right? Isn't that a god? I think Rabbi Becher said a joke, like the polytheist would say to a monotheist, oh, you're like an atheist. You only have one God. I have hundreds of gods. You only believe in one. But the point is that that's not what idolatry was. Idolatry was that, there were these malevolent forces in the world that were run by these like evil spirits or these evil idols, and you had to appease them with sacrifices. But there was no overarching demand for humanity to act in a moral way, to act in a good, just, and proper way. That didn't exist. It was just, you bring sacrifices to these idols, but when you believe in one God, there's one God who demands something from humanity. It's not just that Hashem exists and created the world. He exists, and he wants us to act in a certain way and live to a moral code. That's the difference between idolatry and believing in one God. So Abraham, in believing in one God and spreading that message, was rejecting that which the idols stood for. Okay, any questions thus far? All right, so let's learn some psukim. Sounds good? Maybe. Okay. Oh yeah, we know all the other famous medrash that were all taught in Hebrew school. I forgot to mention this. When he's telling everyone about smashing the idols, and he was causing trouble, Nimrod threw him in the furnace, right? And that's what happened because of that. And he survived. Avram survived. Okay, so let's see page. Yeah, Parshas told us here.
Can I interrupt before?
Yeah, sure.
Noah spent 120 years building the ark, right? So throughout the entire time, the people in his generation did approach him, and I think they ridiculed him. So he wasn't really, encouraged to encourage them because they were scoffing, mocking him.
Right.
So,
It was, similar to Avram. Avram, they tried to kill him. Yeah. So, if
but
I
Abraham hid in the cave for a long time.
I think that was one of the tests that he was running away. Nimrod was trying to get him, and then he got him, and he tried to kill him. So they also had I think he also had was being ridiculed, more than ridiculed, by his compatriots. But yeah, it was definitely it wasn't easy, and most people would not be able to withstand such a trial. But hopefully, as the weeks go on, we'll talk. The next few weeks, the parshas we're going to be talking about Abraham, and hopefully we'll talk about later also why are we focusing on our forefathers so much. It's nice to know our history, very nice. So we'll get to that. Why the Ramban discusses why these parshas spend so much time talking about the forefathers, and not only that, but the minutia of their lives. Like they went to this part of Israel and they dug wells and they did this and they did that. Like, why is that important for us to know? Right? The Torah doesn't waste a word, so hopefully we'll discuss that. But the parsha starts page 54 if you want to follow along. Vayomer Hashem al Avraham Lech Lcha. So we're the intro to what we were giving. We gave so far is brings us to this week's parsha, right? Avraham was 40 years old according to the opinion of the Rambam. He recognized Hashem. Now what happens?
40?
What? According to the Rambam, he was 40. Right. So I was mentioning before that there's seems to be the Rambam's arguing that medrash. I think there's two Gemaras also. I don't remember. Yeah. So the dispute. It's in if you want to take a look. It's in Hilchos Avodah Zarah 1:3 in the Rambam. I think he's coming from a Gemara Medrash, though. So now it says the first pasuk in this week's parsha. It says, "Vayomer Hashem al Avram." Hashem said to Avraham, "Lech lecha me'artzecha, go from your land, u'mimoladetcha, from your birthplace, u'mibeis avicha, and from the house of your father, el haaretz asher areka, to the land which I will show you." So the first thing we see is that what's with this order? Famous question everybody asks. What's with this order? It says, leave from your land, your country, your place of birth, and your father's house. That sounds opposite. It should be first you leave from your father's house, then you leave from your... Probably. Is the rabbi's there? All right, we'll see. If the rabbi goes, give him another minute. So if you first you go from your... Right, when you're leaving, first you leave your house, then you leave your birthplace, right? Then you leave Manalapan, and then you leave your country. Then you leave the United States. So why is it saying United States, Manalapan, your house? And the other thing is that Hashem doesn't tell Avraham where he's going. I'll stop. I want to. Okay, so there's many answers to this, but one answer I saw from Rabbi Moshe Einstatter. We're explaining why does it say first you're going to leave. You have to leave your country, your place of birth, and then your father's house, because it's going with a level of difficulty. When you have to extricate yourself from values that you were brought up with, first it's easiest to get rid of the values that are your country's values. Then it's a little harder to get rid of the values from your place of birth. And then the hardest is to get rid of the values you were raised with in your home. So this was a trial this is for sure one of the tests of Abraham, that he's got to leave his place and go to a random place, which he was going to be Israel, but he did not know that. Right, it's a big test, right? If you know where you're going, then you can be Avram would have been very excited, right? I'm going to Israel, very exciting, the Holy Land. He had no clue where he's going. Hashem, imagine you just wake up one day and Hashem says, "Okay, get up, go." Just start driving on the turnpike. Well, south, go turnpike south. how far? Just go. It's very difficult. But, yeah. What's also interesting is that, you know how old Avram was when he got this command?
75?
Right, 75. He was 75 years old. So we just mentioned before that he was 40 when he recognized Hashem. He was 75 when he got this command, right? When Hashem didn't speak to him until he was 75. So it takes a tremendous person to be able to, do that for 35 years. You might think, I can imagine a normal person in that situation being, I got thrown into a furnace. I'm the only one who believes in God. Everyone else is worshiping idols. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. I'm smashing the idols. I'm telling everybody what they're supposed to do. It's been 6 months already, and still God doesn't talk to me. Forget it. I'm done. And most people probably be like that. So 35 years, though, Avraham had faith, which I think is another perhaps overlooked fact to the greatness of Avraham. Okay. All right, now, we mentioned before, what is with all of the details of the lives of the forefathers? This is going to be fun.
This is not good.
Okay, someone's there. Perfect. Yeah, so let's turn to page 54. 12, 4 to 6. Oh, we're on the page. Look at that. Perfect. Psukim continue. Vayelech Avram kasher diber elav Hashem. Vayelech ito Lot. So Avram did what he's supposed to do. He took Lot with him. Va'avraham ben Chamesh Shanim v'shivim shana. He was 75, like Dennis said. But Seisu mecharan, when he left Haran. V'ikach Avram as Sarah ishto. Avram took Sarah his wife, as Lot ben Achiv, and Lot his nephew. V'as kol rechushim, all their wealth. Asher rachashu v'as anevesh asher asu b'charan, and all the people that they made in Haran. Right? What's it mean? The people that they made in Haran. Avraham, he made converts. Right, he was very successful in converting people to believe in one God. Right, he wasn't converting to Judaism; there was no Judaism yet. But all the people that started believing in Hashem because of him came with him. They started going to the land of Canaan, and they came to the land of Canaan. Right, we don't do this anymore. Once the Torah was given, we do not proselytize actively. Avraham did. We don't do that anymore. I think it says that actually the reason that the Jews are in Gullus is that there are certain sparks of holiness in the nations of the world, and they go to the Jewish people are in different places in the world so that those people have an opportunity to convert to Judaism, to join the Jewish people. So that's why you find sometimes that the Jewish people will be hundreds of years in one place, and then they're kicked out and they're gone. Right? Spain, Poland, right, everywhere. Because they were there for a certain amount of time. All the people that were going to convert converted. All those sparks of holiness joined the Jewish people, and it was time for them to move on. And that's the reasons of Gullus. But they're naturally the neshamas. I've heard this from people who converted to Judaism, that they never raised with anything Jewish, but they just had something that was drawing them to Yiddishkeit. They don't know what it was, and like they didn't have Jewish friends, they didn't have whatever.
When was his name changed?
Later, after Hashem made the covenant with him, to do a bris.
Right.
We'll talk about that too, hopefully. What was I saying? But right, that's the converts, but we don't actively proselytize. Now, the Ramban writes, Amar Lcha, on these psukim, Klal Tavanaso B'chol HaParshios, Haboaz B'inyan Avram Yitzchak. I'm going to tell you a important principle about all these parshas regarding Avraham and Yitzchak. V'yavar Avram ba'eretz on makom Shechem. Avram went until the place of Shechem. V'Yakov who inyan gadol hizichru b'arbaseinu b'derech tzar v'amru kama she'ir la'avo sim l'banim. Says the rabbis in the Medrash say this principle, which I'm about to tell you, in a very succinct sentence. Anything that happens to our forefathers is a sign of what's going to happen to us. It's called Ma'aseh Avos Sim L'Banim. U'lechein ya'arichu haksuvim b'sipor hamasos v'chafiras haba'eros v'shar hamikrim v'yachshav achaysh behem ki Elohim dvarim yusar im behem toelas. He says, you read the verses in the Torah, and you're reading about all of the travels of the forefathers and all the things that happened to them, and the fact that they dig wells, right? Later in a few weeks, we're going to read about Yaakov Avinu digging all these wells. Like,
I apologize, Rabbi.
Right, so you read all these things in the Chumash, you think that they're extra, right? The Torah is just saying extra things that we don't need. So the Ramban writes, "V'kulam boim l'lamed al asad." All these things are coming to teach us about the future. Ki kasher yavu hamikra l'navi mishloishes avos yizboni mimenu hadavar hanigzer level l'zaro kasher teitz mikol chazer al pol. So he says when different things that were going to happen to the Jewish people, the fact that they were acted out by our forefathers means that they're going to come to fruition, right? Avram Avinu, when he came to Israel, walked all around Israel to demonstrate that the Jewish people, that would be their homeland, and they would have control over the land of Israel. So he physically walked around the land of Israel. And the Ramban cites, one second, Jeremiah prophesied that Babylon, which destroyed the temple, was going to be destroyed. So what was done was that a rock was thrown into the Euphrates River as an action to solidify that prophecy. Anytime there's a big yesod, a big principle in Judaism, that anytime a prophecy happens, it has to have a physical action accompanying it for it to come to fruition. So Hashem prophesied to Yirmiyahu that the Babylonians were going to be destroyed, so they had to do a physical act of throwing a rock into the Euphrates River to actualize that prophecy. The Jewish people were promised the land of Israel, so Avram Avinu had to do an act of walking all around Israel to show dominance and control over Israel. This is why you ever wonder on Rosh Hashanah why we dip the apple in the honey? Right? We want to have a sweet new year. Like, okay, it's like very nice. Like, okay, Hashem cares that I dip the apple in the honey. He cares that I'm eating pomegranates and fenugreek and all these things that we say. No, it's this principle that we want to have a good year. So to actualize it, we do a physical act so that it should come to fruition. It's this similar principle that when we want a prophecy, we want something to actualize, we do a physical action to accompany it. Okay. That was on that. Time's in. Okay. We got 8 minutes to do.
No more, no less.
What?
No more, no less.
Yeah. No. I always hate it when it's not. You're in a class. It ends at a certain time. You gotta go. I mean, yeah. Okay. I'll just mention one quick thing. We all know at the end of the parsha, right after Avram Avinu comes to Israel, I'm skipping. There's so much in the parsha. We didn't talk, we didn't do anything. I feel like, but right, you have the wars with the kings and all that. Then Hashem makes a covenant with Abraham that a bris, if you will, that his children will inherit the land. They're going to be the chosen people. They're going to go down to Egypt and they'll be redeemed. And to signify that that covenant, he does a bris milah. Right, a bris. He was 99 years old, and he performed a bris. It was Yom Kippur, which is, I imagine, very painful. I give another parsha class on Thursday nights, and I sit next to a 98-year-old. So I was thinking about how painful it would be for him to have to do a bris on himself, and it's just whatever. But now, you ever wonder why is the covenant on that specific part of the body? So the Ramban writes, because that part of the body represents physical desire. Right? So...
Dave, is somebody else there?
Oh, he's not even buzzing though, so I can't... Is it 9?
He's going in. It's okay.
I got it?
He's in.
Okay. Alright, cool. So right, that part of the body represents the physical desire, and we do a bris there to show that our lives, we're not living for the purpose of physicality, to just satisfy our physical pleasures and to just satisfy what we want, but we're the Jewish people, we live for a higher purpose, and that is to serve Hashem and to think beyond ourselves and not just live for ourselves. And it's interesting enough, Rav Yaakov Emden says that's the holiest part of the body. Because why? Because you could use it to create children, to create life, and that's the holiest thing that you could do. Right, just like Hashem creates life, and not only that, but we have a principle in Judaism called zeh le'uma zeh, that if something has a potential for holiness, it's also got a potential for unholiness, a potential for destruction. So, since it's the holiest part of the body, it also has the potential that if it's misused, to cause tremendous spiritual destruction. We know how that could be, right? Adultery, other things. Okay. Any questions?
The Vilna said the Holy of Holies is the mouth.
He says the Holy of Holies. Would you know where he says it? I'd like to look it up. What?
It's the mouth.
Oh, no, I'm saying, do you know where he says it? I would like to take a look.
I cannot tell you where it is.
All right, if you find it, let me know. I'd like to take a look.
On my,
Yeah, let me know. I would like to take a look.
But maybe
Actually,
there are many other holy parts, not just one.
I know a big rabbi who asked his son what he thinks the holiest part of the body was. He was trying to teach his son, and he said that the son said the mouth, and he said, no, Yaakov Emden says it's this part because of what we said.
Right.
So,
but I think which one is greater, the Vilna Gaon or the Yaakov Emden?
yeah, I don't know.
Yes, and then what does it mean for women if you pick one versus the other?
Well, I mean, women also clearly have the capacity to create life, what they do. But I mean, you could ask, I guess, why women don't have a bris. Like that, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but that's a good question.
I mean,
You
the
know?
Muslims,
Right? Yeah, that's like more mutilation, though. I think they actually like.
yes, it's
Right.
terrible.
Yeah. I'm saying, well, why couldn't it? Right? You could ask, like, why couldn't it be? Why couldn't there be something done that women would also do, like men? I don't know. I don't know the answer. That's an interesting question, but they're definitely in the covenant. There's just no physical thing. Okay, thanks for coming.
That's it.
Yeah. So.